Okay, I'm Craig Shipp, and welcome to my channel. Please subscribe if you haven't already. And in this video, I'm going to talk about my 40-year watch journey, my journey to Grand Seiko at this point, which I have come to determine is the finest wristwatch for daily use that you can buy. And let me give you the backstory of how I got here, because some of the comments on some of my previous videos have kind of questioned how I formed my opinions on Grand Seiko, and so I want to kind of give a little bit of the backstory here so that people know where I'm coming from. I'm not a watch collector. I don't buy dozens of watch and put them in watch cases and use winders to keep watches going. I buy watches to use, and I typically over the years have had at least 2 watches at any given time that I've worn, and I'll explain that in a moment. And now I've gotten to the point where I've honed in on the Grand Seiko brand for a whole lot of different reasons. So let me go way back to late 70s, and I was with a friend of mine, and we went into a Rolex jeweler, and he purchased a Datejust with a steel bezel and the Jubilee bracelet. And at that point in time, the Jubilee bracelets, believe it or not, were made in the USA. At least that one on that watch was. And it was a nice watch. He paid $560 for it from Black Star and Frost Jewelers in White Flint Mall. White Flint Mall since closed. And that was my first exposure to Rolex. I think it was around 1978, 1979-ish. I was like, why would you spend that much for a watch? Now, previous to that, I had a Seiko, and actually a Seiko Bellamatic that my dad had brought back from Japan. He bought a 33 jewel Seiko in Japan, and these were higher end Seiko watches at the time. Not a Grand Seiko though, not in that class, but a higher end Seiko watch. He brought back a 33 jewel watch, and he brought back a Seiko Bellamatic, and this was in about 1973, 74, 72, early 70s, and I'd had that Bellamatic for a number of years, and I really enjoyed it. It was a fun watch. But that was not, a $560 or $80 watch like my friend paid for the Datejust. So I was shocked. Why would somebody pay this much for a watch? And then I started slowly but surely becoming more familiar with Rolex. And it was in the early 80s, maybe 81, I think around 1981, that I bought a 1803 model Rolex Date 8. I was really enamored with the Date 8s. And so I bought a used Date 8, and it had a conventional clasp on it. It didn't have the hidden clasp bracelet. And it had some stretch in the bracelet. It was an older one, so I got a pretty good deal on it. I think I paid around $2,000 for that watch at the time. And I wore that watch for a couple of years, and then I got a steel Rolex to use as a beater watch, if you will. I think it was an older Submariner. And I went through different Rolexes over the next 10 years or so. I was trying to find the perfect combination of a Date 8 and a sport Rolex. I had a GMT2 for a while. I had a couple of Submariners. I even had a 3/4 size Datejust, which turned out to be too small. It was a stainless steel watch with a white gold bezel. Ended up selling that. I went through a number of watches. I even had a couple of watches serviced by Rolex, so I have some experience with that as well. And then in the year 2000, I actually bought a brand new Date 8 with the hidden clasp bracelet, and I've got videos here on my channel of that. Unfortunately, I don't have videos of the previous watches because that was pre-YouTube time and all that. I'll roll in some photos, some old photos of me wearing some of those watches. So I was a big fan of Rolex. Rolex was the way to go because, again, I buy my watches to use, and they were I wear my watch all the time. I don't care if I'm swimming, I'm working on a car, that's when I'd be wearing my steel watch. And so no matter what, I was using these watches. And Rolex seemed to be a great watch for that purpose, to actually use. And they were pretty accurate. Later, I started looking at other brands. I actually bought a brand new Omega Seamaster 120. I had sold one of my steel Rolexes, and I was down to just the date 8, so I needed a beater watch. So I was in Colonial Jewelers in downtown Frederick, Maryland, and they had a Omega Speedmaster 120, which was quartz. Because one thing I ran into, I was starting to have trouble keeping both watches running, keeping the date 8 and whatever steel Rolex I had running. I'd turn out I wasn't wearing one enough and it would stop, and it started getting kind of a hassle to keep them both running. So I bought the Omega Quartz. Nice looking watch. I'll roll in a photo of that. And the only thing I didn't like about that watch is the clasp would come undone because it only had one push button on the one side to undo the clasp. And sometimes your wrist would hit that button and it would come undone for, when you didn't want it to. Only thing I didn't like about that watch. And also the skeletonized hands were a little bit harder to read. This was when I was starting to get to the point where I need reading glasses. So that watch wasn't as readable. And the day date, unless I was in good light, the day date was getting to the point where it wasn't as readable for me unless I put on my reading glasses. And I don't always carry my reading glasses with me. So that was starting to become inconvenient, just the fact that my eyes were getting old. So now I'm 60 years old, so now I pretty much need reading glasses. But I can read the diver's watch. I can read the Grand Seiko diver's watch, no problem, in any lighting conditions without my reading glasses, which I really like. So when I back up a little bit here, I bought a Seiko, I think it's a SBDC 007. It's the, what do they call it? Well, anyway, I have a video on my channel of it, and which got like 500,000 views. It's a titanium high-end Seiko. It's a $1,000 watch. I think they call it the Shogun. Shogun, that's what they call it. And I bought that watch from shoppinginjapan.net, and I loved that watch. Super comfortable. The titanium made it so comfortable on wrist. Even though it was a good-sized watch, very readable. I could read it, again, with my tired eyes, no matter what lighting conditions. I wore that watch for a couple of years, loved it, but it wasn't that accurate. That movement in that watch, it would lose sometimes 3 seconds a day or something, and to me that's not acceptable. I need a watch to be pretty accurate because I do a lot of things that are time sensitive. And I want to look at the watch and I don't want to be misled about the time. I call into radio shows at like an exact time, different things I have to do that are time sensitive. So that's the only thing that bothered me. Then the Apple Watch came out, and I actually bought an Apple Watch. Nice stainless steel bracelet on it. I still have it. And I wore that actually for a couple of years, on and off. I was still wearing the day date. The day date was still in my rotation. Always, the day date has always been in my rotation. And so then I started learning about Grand Seiko. And for the last few years, maybe even the last 3 or 4 or 5 years, I've been kind of like occasionally seeing a little something about Grand Seiko. And then I saw a video, I guess from Arizona Fine Time, about the diver's watch, the Grand Seiko diver's watch, which I have on right now, which I love, which check out my 2-month video where I update after 2 months of ownership the details on this watch. And it is just a fantastic watch. It takes all the benefits of that titanium Seiko I just mentioned and takes it up to a whole nother level to where it's close to the perfect everyday sport watch, if you will. Durable, easy to read, super accurate. After 2 months, it was still within half a second of the Apple Watch, the exact time. Amazingly accurate. And so that really sealed the deal. When I had that watch this watch right here, for 2 months, and I found out really how accurate it really is, and how enjoyable it is to wear, and how comfortable it is, and I think it's very good looking as well. I was convinced Grand Seiko really had something going on. So then I said, well, I want to get something dressier in the Grand Seiko line that I can wear, switch off with the diver's watch when I want something more elegant. And their famous Snowflake model has gotten a lot of good reviews and so forth. And I actually had looked at one at Little Treasury Jewelers, their littletreasury.com. I'd actually looked at one previously when I bought the diver's watch, but I didn't really study it that much. I didn't try it on or anything like that. So now I have the Grand Seiko Snowflake, and this is a fantastic watch. And what I've done now, what I've decided now is, in situations where I have very good lighting, like during the day or whatever, or when I'm working in my office with the, I've got my reading glasses on anyway, I like to wear this watch because I can read it without my reading glasses on. Like I can read it right now in decent light, but in low light, the diver's watch still has a tremendous advantage as far as readability. So what I do now is at night and other times when it's low light or when I want to wear something sporty, I wear the diver's watch, and other times I wear the Snowflake. So now I think I have the perfect 2-watch rotation because they're both very easy to keep going. The spring drive is more efficient as far as how much wrist movement it takes to wind it, and it has a 72-hour power reserve. So I'll never even get close to one of these watches stopping, even if I just wear one for like 2 hours one day and don't wear it at all the next day, and then wear it like 4 hours the day after that. It's going to keep running. It's never an issue that it's going to stop. Whereas the day-date will stop. If I don't wear it enough, it likes to be worn, 6 hours, 8 hours every 2 days or so at least. Sometimes like really 10 hours. Depends on your movement, of course. But these watches are much more forgiving on that. So, and my gosh, the quality. As you own these watches, these Grand Seikos, and the more you study them and the more you become familiar with them, you're just amazed every day that you have one. So I hope you enjoyed this. I hope you enjoyed my little watch journey, and I might talk about some of these things some more from time to time. But and I'm going to have a whole series of videos on the Snowflake. I've only put one video up so far on the Snowflake, so I will have a whole series of videos coming for that watch. So please subscribe and ask any questions you'd like in the comments, and I will see you in the next video. I might not see you. Usually you're just seeing my hands and I'm talking about a watch. But this, since I was kind of telling a story, I wanted you to see me and kind of just tell a story. So I hope you enjoyed this. Again, hey, please subscribe to my channel.